aren't many in Israel concerned that hospitals in Gaza will treat Hamas terrorists? It doesn't that doesn't matter. Like, you still can't attack a hospital, right? Like, I can't believe I have to explain this, but like, you can't just be like, well, your people I don't like. Well, we're gonna bomb your hospital anyway. That's still contrary to international law and the Geneva Conventions. Hospitals are there to treat anyone who has an injury and needs medical treatment. I'm sorry. Do you, Gidiox, do you think that you should take an ideological assessment before you get any medical treatment? Like, if you get shot in a mugging gone wrong, do you think that as you enter the hospital, they should give you an ideological assessment to figure out if you're the right kind of person that they should treat? I don't think they should. I think they should treat you. I'm in America. Yeah, but you know what? There are a lot of bad people in America. There are neo-Nazis in America. What if, I think neo-Nazis are basically terrorists. Should they not be allowed to get treatment in hospitals? Under your thinking, they shouldn't be able to, right? There's a difference between an ideology and being a violent terrorist. They are violent terrorists according to ideology. How do you determine who is and is not a member of a group? What if they change shirts before they go into the hospital? The difference is ideology. If you imposed a law, well, you can't get treated at a hospital if you're a member of Hamas, then they're just gonna go change out of their uniform before they go to the hospital. Also, there's a difference between an ideology and being a violent terrorist. What you think there's a difference between the Nazi ideology and being a violent terrorist? Are you sure about that one, bud? You think there's a difference between like somebody who wants to kill all the Jews in America and someone who wants to kill all the Jews in the Middle East? That's really weird. I think regardless of your ideology, you should be able to get treated at a hospital. But if we start playing these ideological games, there's not really an end point to that. I could say, well, I think anyone in the United States who supports the Confederacy or supports the battle flag of the South, they shouldn't be able to get treated at a hospital. Because they're supporting violent terrorists who attacked the United States. Statistically, far more white men in the South are pro-Confederate. So statistically, maybe we should just not allow white men in the South to be able to go to the hospital. It's crazy. Statistically, more white men in the South are affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan. Guess we shouldn't allow white men in the South to go to the hospital. You see how this is a difficult line that you're trying to draw here? Except white men aren't the ones that did October 7th, or who hold Israeli hostages. Yeah, but white men do like I'm bringing it home, baby. White men do the majority of mass shootings in America. White men are the ones doing the majority of terrorist actions in America. So I guess in America, if we're using your logic, we shouldn't allow white men to use the hospitals, right? Right? Like that's your logic, just applied in America. And I think you can kind of tell because you're wiggling around ideologically here. You're wiggling around. I think you can kind of tell why your idea is bad. Okay, if you're just going to apply loose reasoning, I'm applying your reasoning to America. You're the one creating like this weird difference because it's over there and not over here. You're the one doing that. I'm applying consistently your line of thinking. And you're upset because if you were consistent with that, you would realize how stupid it is. White men do not commit the majority of violent crime. I didn't say violent crime. I said white men commit the majority of terrorist action in America. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting here that you went from talking about terrorist action to crime. That's very interesting. It's very interesting that you went from talking about terrorist action and terrorist ideology to just violent criminals. But that's not justification for denying them hospitals or any other skin color for that matter. Yeah, but you just applied that reasoning to an entire ethnic group, you dipshit. You just said an entire ethnic group. Most Palestinians support Hamas. You just applied that thinking to an entire group, and you think it's okay because they're over there instead of here. They're over there. They're of that skin color, and they're way over there, so it's different. But Arabic and Islamic communities are the ones that majority voted and support Hamas, according to polling data. Jidiox, question, when did they elect Hamas? When did that happen? When do you think they elected Hamas and supported Hamas in the Gaza Strip? Just out of curiosity. I don't remember the last election that happened. Well, you wouldn't remember it because it was in 2006. And do you happen to know what the average age of a Palestinian in the Gaza Strip is? Just out of curiosity here. Do you happen to know that? Because I do. I don't know, like 19. Wrong. The majority of people in the Gaza Strip are children. Under the age of 18. Do you think that they were the ones voting in Hamas in 2006? When they were 5 years old or younger? And do you think that a militant organization that was getting funding from the Israeli government, do you think that the election in 2006 was a fair and honest election? When you had people at the polls with guns looking at who you voted for? Oh, but you know, their parents voted for Hamas in 2006 in an unfair election, so I guess that justifies killing them en masse. I guess that justifies forcing 2.4 million of them, again, mostly children, out of their homes into the south of the Gaza Strip and killing over 20,000 of them while targeting mainly hospitals. I guess that justifies it. You know, their parents voting for Hamas in 2006 in a unfair election. Regardless of whether that specific election doesn't change the fact polls still show the majority of Gazans, when surveyed, say they support Hamas. Who is doing surveys right now? Who do you... I'm sorry, do you think that they have the infrastructure to do surveys in the Gaza Strip right now? They don't even have gas or food to run their hospitals. Who? Oh, you think? Oh, they're just gonna call up the people in Gaza and be like, "Hey, oh, you with the phone dead. You don't have any battery for your phone? Oh, I guess they support Hamas." Even if you bought that was true, even if you thought that was true, Gidiox, I want you to wonder just a little bit, why might people support Hamas when there are 200,000 troops that have currently displaced 2.4 million people from their homes and have killed 1 in 20 of them? Why might they support the only militant organization that is operating in the region that at least nominally says it supports their best interests? Because of Islamic fundamentalism, maybe? No, dipshit, it's because Israel keeps bombing their parents, their brothers, their sisters, their friends, their family, their lovers, their grandparents. What would you do if another country invaded the United States and killed everyone you love? What would you do? Realistically, what would you do if everything you loved and cared about was taken from you by a foreign invader? What would you do? Who would you support in that circumstance? I don't blame all the citizens or religious or ethnic community of the country that invaded, like many Palestinians do, to hate on Jewish people. Oh, so if Canada invaded the United States and killed everyone you loved and was like occupying your town, you'd just be like, well, we deserved it. That's insane. That's insane, dude. I wouldn't do hate or... You wouldn't do hate or... You wouldn't hate the people who killed the people you care about? You'd be like, well, they killed my parents for no reason, but I don't hate them. I wouldn't do violence to people who invaded and occupied my town. Or, like, I wouldn't want to do that. I think you're just lying. I think you're lying because that's an over there problem and not a here problem. And also, Palestinians don't hate Jewish people. Palestinians hate the country of Israel that is colonizing them and currently massacring them and talking about how they all need to be killed. They hate the country that's doing that to them, not all Jewish people. Jesus Christ. Palestinian media and education says to hate on Jewish and Israeli people. I think you're just wrong. And you know why I think you're wrong? And I don't know if you know this, but there are Palestinians in America. You can currently meet and talk with Palestinians
propaganda agent
in America. Because there was an event approximately 60 years ago called the Nakba that pushed hundreds of thousands of Palestinians out of their homes. And those Palestinians then had to find a new place to live. And some of them wound up in the United States. You can find people who lost their homes 60 years ago, still alive today, and they don't hate all Jewish people. They hate the state that kicked them out of their homeland. Like, there was this Mickey Mouse cartoon, Children's Entertainment, that satirized the murder of infidels. Hey, Jidiox, it's wild to me that you are saying, well, there was this one piece of propaganda that said a hateful thing. Meanwhile, you're happy enough to stand for the entire country of Israel murdering 20,000 people, the majority of whom, again, are children, while displacing, which, by the way, a more accurate term for that would be ethnically cleansing 2.4 million of them, while talking about how they really need to kill all of them and turn the places that they lived and loved and worked in into a parking lot. Like they just saying that on television all day, every day. Members of the ruling political party, Likud, who are making decisions about the war and invading the Gaza Strip, they openly talk about killing every Palestinian. We went over a report last week talking about how the current internal plan for propagated by members of Likud is to thin the herd of Palestinians, to kill so many of them that other nations will be willing to take their the diaspora, the remnants of whoever manages to survive. But those Islamic and Arabic communities likely would grow up to support Hamas. So you should kill them, right? Right? Like, that's your argument, right? That you should kill every last man, woman, and child in the Gaza Strip, because otherwise they might grow up to support Hamas. That's your argument, right? Those Islamic and Arabic communities. I need to remind you, though, that there are also Christian communities in the Gaza Strip. And it's also very interesting to me that earlier you were talking about how, oh, you shouldn't deny people hospital treatment because of their skin color or ethnicity. And yet you're listing Arabic as, like, you know, the Arabic community, as if it's not an ethnicity. That's very interesting to me. But you're advocating for killing all of them because they might be Hamas someday. If I'm understanding your argument here correctly. I don't know. It sounds to me like you're just justifying a genocide. It sounds to me like you are trying to say Israel is justified in killing 2.4 million people because they might do something bad someday. Because they have some sort of inherent criminality to them. And I need to remind you that that is exactly the argument used to justify the Holocaust. That's one of many reasons, but even if every non-Hamas member Palestinian was against Hamas, that doesn't change Hamas using their homes and markets as places to launch bombs and make bases from. Yeah, so you're just in favor of you're just in favor of mass executing Palestinians. Gotcha. That's pretty monstrous. And honestly, I would argue like far, far more an indictment on you and like how people should view and treat you. You started all of this out by saying, well, they're terrorists, so they shouldn't be getting treatment at hospitals. You're now moving on to saying, well, you know, every man, woman, and child should be killed. Because, you know, not only might they turn into members of Hamas, but, you know, their homes might be used by Hamas. So, you know, their homes need to be destroyed too. And I'd argue that that's like one of the most horrific and horrible things a human being can argue for. And I think that you're doing it because you just don't believe it matters. Like, you don't think it's real. Like, I don't know. Like, you're the one trying to say like violent terrorists shouldn't be like able to get basic services like being treated at a hospital. And like, yet you have said something and advocated for something unspeakably violent, the most violent that you can possibly be, which is that the occupiers should just kill millions of people. How would Israel defeat Hamas and their infrastructure systems without any collateral damage? Negotiating. Diplomacy. War and violence is a failure of diplomacy, first and foremost. This is like saying, well, how would World War II had worked? How would World War I have worked out if I mean, without any collateral damage? It would have been the success of the diplomatic efforts beforehand. But like, what you fail to recognize is that the ongoing project of Israel has, from the beginning, been a project of ethnically cleansing Palestinians. But Hamas doesn't want to stop being a dictatorship. They do not want peace. You're actually wrong about that. They've been trying to pursue a two-state solution for a long time. But what's interesting is that you think Hamas is the only political base in the Gaza Strip. It's not. There are other political groups dedicated to nonviolent action within the Gaza Strip. The main issue is the leaders of those groups tend to get assassinated by the IDF. And Netanyahu, the guy who runs Israel currently, is on record talking about how if you want to annihilate any dream of a two-state solution, you need to be in favor of funding Hamas. Hence why Netanyahu, for decades, has been instrumental in getting Hamas funding. Because he knows, and the Likud party he represents knows, that violent action from Hamas towards Israel improves and solidifies their power base politically. And it's very interesting that your response to, like, oh, you want to genocide Palestinians was not, no, I don't want to genocide Palestinians. Your response was, well, how else would Israel defeat them? How else would Israel defeat them? That's like saying, how else would we defeat the South? We need to kill all the white men. That's like if the Union forces invading the South to finish the Civil War were like, well, the only way for us to be sure is for us to murder every white man. Time for us to do a genocide. Kill all the whites. But, like, you understand when I say that that's a ridiculous solution. That wouldn't work. And yet you advocate for that for Palestinians. That is insane and deeply sick, and a sign that you have something deeply wrong in your soul. You asked the other day if you need to go to therapy. You absolutely need to go to therapy, my dude. Like, not only do you have, like, anger issues, apparently, from what you shared the other day, you also have, like, empathy issues. You don't recognize these other people as human beings because they happen to live a far distance away from you and are an ethnicity that you think is okay to do violence on. You think that they are such different creatures that they can't even be negotiated with. And that's on you. That's a sickness inside of you called hatred. And that's something you need to work on. Which party other than Hamas do the majority of Arabic and Islamic communities in Gaza substantially support? Well, you know what makes the support coalesce around Hamas? Bombing them. Bombing people in the Gaza Strip makes them gravitate towards the one militant wing that claims it's standing up to protect them. So if you're against talking with them and negotiating for peace, it's like it's no wonder you think that killing all of them is a solution. But I just need you to understand, it's literally the same. You're making literally the same argument that Hitler made against the Jews. You're making the same argument to justify killing Palestinians. That they have an inherent sickness to their ideology, that they are racially inferior, that they are inclined towards violence, that they are a scourge upon the region, and they must all be eliminated or pushed out. No wonder you got a little bit defensive when I said maybe hospitals shouldn't treat Nazis, I guess. And before you're like, oh, I'm not a Nazi, if you're making the same arguments for the final solution, to me, you're indistinguishable from one. The Jewish people during World War II absolutely carried out militant action against the Nazis. Shut the fuck up. If you think they quietly took genocide without taking action to try and defend themselves, you are fucking stupid. Oh, well, it's not like the Jews had their own, like, insular little governments. I don't know, maybe look up, like, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising or something, dude. Like, Jesus. Yeah, but there wasn't a terrorist organization equivalent to Hamas that existed before the Holocaust. The Nazis claimed that there was. The Nazis claimed that there was an international terrorist organization that had the aim of destroying Germany. And it's weird to me that you've circled back to, like, well, they elected Hamas, when literally no one in the Gaza Strip, the majority of people in the Gaza Strip, weren't old enough to vote. The vast majority of the people in the Gaza Strip were not old enough to vote for Hamas. And I find it very, very telling that your argument is, well, I mean, if there had been a terrorist organization of Jews, it would have justified the Holocaust. You think if, like, I don't know, 10,000 Jews had done, like, a violence towards Nazi Germany, that would have justified the Holocaust? Is that what you're trying to tell me? It would have justified killing 6 million Jewish people? Like, even if I grant you, even if I'm like, okay, let's engage with your hypothetical, you think that would have justified killing every Jew? The violence happened only after the Holocaust? Wrong. I would suggest you go and learn your history, Jidiox. There's a difference between a single Jewish organization and the overwhelming majority of Jewish organizations worldwide. Nowhere that is demographically majority Israeli, Islamic, or Arabic isn't there a theocratic dictatorship, and we see this in Iran, Syria, and Libya, etc. One, that's just not true. There are majority Islamic countries that are democratic. Second of all, like, notably Egypt, for example. Notably, also, if your argument is essentially that all Muslim people should be killed, you're now expanding from just 2.4 million Palestinians should be killed, and now you're saying, oh, well, actually, it turns out we should kill 1.6 billion people because of their religious affiliation. Well, Ukrainian, Indonesia, and Bangladesh wouldn't count to Jidiox because they're not Middle Eastern enough. Like, please, for the love of God, read history. Watch some documentaries, my guy. Learn about the past. So you aren't just casually saying, "Oh yeah, we should just kill all of them." They behead people for drug peddling. That's God. It's not a theocracy. It's a corrupt democracy. There's a difference. But also, are you implying we should kill all Muslims? Is that your political position here? Because that's what it really seems like it boils down to for you. It's not really even about Palestinians. You think that Muslims are inherently violent? Am I getting that right? Sadly, you may be right. Oh, sorry, I said 1.6 billion? 1.8 billion. I did not say that in chat. I'm just saying I don't think democracy and the culture of Gaza are compatible. Why? Why do you think they're not compatible? And you also said, let me scroll up here for a second. There's a difference between a single Jewish organization and the overwhelming majority of Jewish organizations worldwide. Nowhere that is demographically majority Islamic or Arabic isn't a theocracy, theocratic dictatorship, and we see this in Iran and Syria and Libya. So when I said earlier, we're going to come back around to this. When I said earlier that you think the Holocaust would be justified if there was a Jewish terrorist organization, your response was, there's a difference between a single Jewish organization and the majority of Jewish organizations. And that seems to me to imply that the Holocaust would have been justified, because, again, I said this, that the Holocaust would have been justified if most Jewish people had been a member of or affiliated with somehow this terrorist organization. And, like, that's the thinking that led to the Holocaust. So you're not really getting away from that point. You just said, oh, well, the majority of Muslims hate Israel, so... And then you just kind of trailed off. When the clear implication of what you're saying is that, yeah, you think all Muslims should die. Right? Like, be honest, right? You're anonymous right now. You can say whatever the hell you want. So don't waste our time lying about what you want. Right? You want all Palestinians to die, but you also think, to be safe, all Muslims should die. That's the conclusion of your arguments here. I gotta go stir my beans. I'll be right back. They need to thicken up some more. There hasn't been a democratic experiment where they elected a liberal government that supports freedom and peace. They did. It was called Fatwa. The PLO. The Palestinian Authority that currently runs the West Bank ran the Gaza Strip. And then the Israeli state rigged the elections against the PLO, which caused them to lose the election to Hamas. So they did have a democracy, and Israel deliberately fucked it up in order to do exactly what it's doing right now. It's interesting that you've now gone from saying they're justified in killing all Palestinians to they're also justified in invading Lebanon. Anyway, Jidiox, I would like you to consider the horrific shit that you've just advocated for. Like just to really emphasize what you just have advocated for, you say in retaliation for an attack that killed 1,200 Israelis, Israel is justified in killing 2.4 million Palestinians. I'm going to time you out for 24 hours to give you some time to think about that. Because, like, that's fucking monstrous. You should be deeply ashamed of yourself and, like, reconsider your ideas. Because, like, that's, again, the kind of rhetoric that leads to to holocausts. You are advocating for a genocide. And there's really no getting around that. You're the kind of person who would get along well with a neo-Nazi. You're the kind of person who's like, yeah, we should kill all black people because they're criminals. You're that kind of person. That's the kind of company, ideological company you keep. So think about that for a while. Bye. The argument that because 1,200 people died, you are then entitled to kill 2.4 million is insane.